Hello, welcome to another episode of Talk Life with me. I can't believe we are already in the month of February of this year. I feel like this year is going by so fast. But with the month of February, I think it's very hard to not see what is in the stores and to not see the season that's coming up, which is Valentine's Day. I'm sure if you go to any department store or any grocery store, supermarket, you are going to see hearts and flowers and teddy bears and Valentine cards and everything that's red, pink, and purple. All this about love, right? About Valentine's. And I remember growing up, one of my first jobs was working for a party store. And I remember Valentine's Day, that was one of our busiest seasons for balloons. Like people were buying balloons by the dozen, just like they would flowers. So it's kind of hard to avoid seeing all of this festivities for, showing someone that you love them, that you care for them. I think as a kid, obviously you love it. Like my son, they celebrate Valentine's Day, so they make their own little boxes, and then you can put a little candy, a little trinket, a little something, to share with your friends. But as you get older, as you are in the stage of, I guess, teenagers, it can get, you start feeling butterflies in your stomach. You start thinking about boyfriend, girlfriends, and that's kind of what I am going to focus on with this month is the topic of love, the topic of dating, the topic of singleness. And before I jump right into it, I just wanted to give out a warning that we will be talking about adult topics, kind of some mature things. So this is just a discretion about some of the content that we will be discussing. So I'm just putting out that warning. That way, once you hear it, you're like, wait, what did she say? So we will be talking about some mature things. So this is your warning. I know when it comes to dating, I do want to say and stress that if you are younger than 18 years old, please take the advice of your parents in regards to when you're allowed to date. Every parent, I think, is different. I know some parents let their kids date as early as elementary school, which I don't understand why, but to each their own. Growing up, my parents, they had a rule. And, the rule was in order for us to start dating, we needed to have our driver license. So you best believe I worked really hard to get that driver license. I think out of my siblings, I was the one that was I wanted to be part of the dating world. I wanted to have a boyfriend. I wanted to experience, dates and things of that sort. But what I do want to talk about is in regards to relationship. Because I will say, I think a lot of the times when we are young, when we are in that teenage phase, we're not really worried about things that as we get older, we should have worried about. For example, when you are in that teenage phase, that what you call puppy love, passing out little notes and things like that, you're not really worried about, am I going to marry this person? Now, in the Bible, it doesn't specifically have like Bible verses about dating per se, but it does talk a lot about relationships and love. What I want to dive into is kind of the reasons why. Why do people want to date? Why do people, the younger generation want to have that so bad? Now, I can only speak on my experience and the things that the Lord has shown me since then. But for example, when I first wanted to start dating, I think it was because I felt pressured with everyone around me. My friends had boyfriends and my guy friends had girlfriends, and I was just like, okay, I don't want to be that one person. Guess peer pressure got into it. I think also the fact that I'm thinking about when I was a teenager, and like I watched a lot of movies that were about romance, and as a teenager, I feel like I really got into them, and I'm like, oh, I want that. I want my Prince Charming, or, I want my boyfriend to hold the boombox and, all this stuff. Like all these things, like you, as a teenager, I think you don't realize that it's that's not reality. For me, I think I didn't want to be lonely. I just felt like I needed to have that person. And again, I wasn't thinking about, oh, am I going to marry this person? It was just, I want to date. I want to be part of that aspect. I think as a human nature, I think for a girl, we tend to crave and want attention. Like we like that. We want affirmation on different things. And I felt in that time in my teenage years that having a boyfriend was kind of like the biggest affirmation of, oh, I'm loved. Oh, I'm pretty. Again, going off of the self-image that we talked about prior. So moving along that, if you are no longer in your teenage years and you're in your 20s and in your 30s and 40s, I will say there is no specific age that you have to get married. Please don't feel like if you're 30 or 40 and you haven't gotten married that your time's almost up, because God has everything under control. I think a lot of the times we tend to jump the gun on impulse and we're like, oh, there's nobody else, I'm gonna just go with him. Or there's no one else, I'll just pick her. And when it comes to marriage, I mean, that is a serious commitment. That isn't something that should be taken lightly because you're scared you're going to end up alone. That is not a reason to get married. So if you are in your 20s and 30s, 40s, 50s, and you are dating, I think one of the biggest things we need to take into consideration is, what are your shared values? I think a lot of the times when we are past that puppy love stage and we're looking for something more serious, something that could potentially turn into marriage, because ultimately I feel like that's what dating should be. Dating is, I have an intent to marry you. That is my intention. As Christians, we need to seek partners that share that faith, the same values as you. And if we look in the word of the Lord in 2 Corinthians 6:14 and to 15, it says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness? And what accord has Christ with Belial? Or what part has a believer with an unbeliever? I think many times when you enter into a relationship, and whether you're the believer or the unbeliever and the other person is the opposite, the believer has the tendency to say, oh, I'm going to change them. It's okay. It's okay that they don't believe because God's going to touch their hearts and I'm going to change them. Can it happen? Absolutely. God can definitely touch that person, but you need to ask yourself in that process, in that dating process, how is that going to affect you? Now, what does unequally yoked mean? A yoke is a wooden bar that joins two oxen to each other and to the burden they pull. An unequally yoked team has one stronger ox and one weaker one, or one taller, one shorter. The weaker or shorter ox would walk more slowly than the taller, stronger one, causing the load to go in circles. When oxen are unequally yoked, they cannot perform the task set before them. Instead of working together, they are at odds with one another. As we can see here, they cannot perform that task. Ask yourself this question. If unequally yoked oxen cannot perform a task together, what makes you or me or, those in the dating phase, what makes us believe that two unequally yoked people will be able to perform the task of being in a successful relationship? And that's what the word of the Lord is trying to say when it says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. Because at the end of the day, we won't be able to complete the task on our own. Like I mentioned before, the Lord can do his will. But a lot of the times we try and make things happen the way we want. We try and change the person to our own, to what makes us feel better. And that's not the way that God intended it to be. If you are currently dating someone or planning on dating someone that does not share the same values or the same beliefs as you, like the word says, it is an unequally yoked union, an unequally yoked relationship. And be very, very careful in regards to taking it to the next level of marriage. Because again, marriage is something sacred. Marriage isn't something that, oh, I didn't like that person, I'll just try the next one. And if that one doesn't work, I'll just marry another one. God established marriage to be for a lifetime. And if in the dating phase, because the dating phase is where you get to know that person. And another thing that I want to stress is When I was dating, I felt, again, this is in my teenage years, I wasn't really focused on their beliefs. I just thought, oh, they go to church, great. It's not just, oh, they go to church. It's how is their life outside of church? Does it reflect Christ? Just like the word says, we need to be the light in that darkness. So shared values, super, super important. I think another important aspect to take into consideration when dating is sexual purity. I know a lot of people don't want to hear about this. I know in the world that we live in, sex before marriage is okay. That's not what the Lord intended for us. If we take a look in the word of the Lord, in 1 Corinthians 6:18 and 19, it says, flee fornication. What is fornication? Sex before marriage. Flee fornication. Every sin that a man does is outside the body, but he who commits fornication sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not your own? Like we mentioned in the podcast prior about self-image, our bodies are the temple for Christ. And he gave us these bodies so that we can take care of them, so that we can keep them pure, so that we won't commit these sexual immoralities. Now, a lot of the times it's our body that we want to please. You know, our body and our flesh has a mind of its own. But what does the Lord say about the flesh? If we look at Romans 8:8, it says, those who are in the flesh cannot please God. And if we jump to Galatians 5:16, but I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. This is to all the people that are in a relationship and know good and well that what they're doing is not what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to sexuality. That is something that needs to be saved from marriage. God created marriage as a beautiful union between two people where both can experience that. And I guess a little side note here is last week, my husband and I went to class with our pastors, Pitters, and they were talking about how when you are in the dating phase, if you've already been intimate before marriage, when you actually get married, you may have some preconceived notions as to what you expect that intimacy to look like. Now, ideally, realistically, God created the intimacy part of relationships to be for the husband and wife to experience it together for the first time. That's the beautiful part about experiencing that intimacy together. That way you don't have any preconceived notions as to how it's supposed to be. You both explore that together. And if you experience this prior to marriage and the other person also, when you join in together, it may not be what you're looking for because you're already thinking about what has happened before in previous relationships. So it's important to make sure that we are not pleasing our flesh, that we need to please the Spirit of the Lord. As Christians, as believers, we need to know that. And that's really, really important because when it comes to the dating phase, again, yes, dating is where you figure out who you think is going to be your best partner. However, I don't think dating was meant to be like a buffet where it's like, I'll take you on Monday, I'll take you on Tuesday, I'll take that, I'll take a little bit of this. Like dating, I feel has always been one person. And if that one person you feel, hey, we're not clicking, hey, this is not matching, don't lead that other person on. I think that's one of the things I hated about dating is that it's like, is this person committed to you? Because sometimes I felt like I was more committed than the other person, or the other person felt they were more committed than me. And that's where communication comes into practice. And it's hilarious because I am a communications major from ASU, and I feel like because I've read so much about communication, whenever me and my husband have discussions or we're talking about something, I'm always thinking about all these different things. You know, I'm overanalyzing things, or I'm like thinking about different theories, and my husband's just talking to me. So communication is super, super important when it comes to the dating phase, because you need to have temperature checks with the person you are dating to make sure that you are both on the same page. Because I think the worst thing that could happen is you spend years and years, months with someone thinking that marriage is end game, and then you realize way down the road, oh, hey, I never had any intention of marrying you. And then you are disillusioned. You're like, what did I just do? Like, you wasted time. So communication is super important in the dating phase. Again, dating doesn't mean, oh, I dated this one person and I have to marry them now. No, dating is, hey, figure out, but with respect. That's what I'm trying to say is, when you are dating, you need to let the other person know if it's set. Like, I feel like dating and boyfriend girlfriend it's different. When you're dating, I think if the other person is well aware that you're just looking around, because I think a lot of the times dating can be misconstrued as like, oh, I'm fishing, let's see who I get today, oh, let me fish over here. The thing about dating is an opportunity where you get to see, okay, who do I feel is going to be a good partner, a lifetime partner for me. But dating does not mean, okay, let me sleep with this person, see if I like it, sleep with that person, see if I, no. Dating does not mean sexual. I know, especially for believers, we should understand that the Lord created us to love one another. And is sexual an important part? Absolutely. But you explore that in marriage. And here's another Bible verse in regards to preserving intimacy, sex for marriage. In Hebrews 13:4, it says, marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure. For God will judge the adulterer and all the fornicators. So those are some of the topics, communication, making sure that you guys have the same shared values, same beliefs, making sure that you keep yourself pure during this phase. I mean, I don't mean to make it sound like dating is this horrible, oh no, all these rules. No, it's fun. It's fun to get to know people, but you need to make sure that you communicate, have that communication with your boyfriend, with your girlfriend, and make sure that the relationship is honorable unto the eyes of God. So that is pretty much it. I don't really have that much, just because I am out of that dating phase. Thank the Lord. I date my husband now. Me and him date. So he is my forever date. And that is kind of all that I have in regards to dating. I just want to put it out there, especially for the younger folks. I know it's not a topic that people talk about it as often. And it's just because, it could get kind of touchy at times. But it's important. So if you're young and in love, embrace it, love it, but also be very, very careful. Make sure that you are listening to the word of God, listen to your heart. And most importantly, if you're under the age of 18, listen to your parents. They know what they're talking about. Okay, that wraps it up. So thank you guys again. Next week, we will continue on the topic of love, but not dating in specific. Just tune in and you'll see what it's about. All right, guys, have a good one.